Welcome to the Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. Your host, Adam and Sean, will talk about their lives and living in recovery.
Hello, welcome to Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. My name is Adam.
And I'm Sean.
And tonight we're talking about, our topic is genetic history as far as alcoholism, how it relates to us, and how it may relate to you. There's a lot of studies been done on the human genome that have found that alcoholism is actually truly in our DNA. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yes, that's from what I'm understanding. It is truly in our DNA. So,
Sean looked up some very interesting facts, and why don't you share a couple of those with us that you found?
well, I Googled this topic for tonight's discussion, and I found some interesting information at the oxfordtreatmentcenter.com. And it says here that in 2006, the National Institute on Drug Abuse supported research that reviewed the human genome as part of an effort to identify America's most at risk for developing an alcohol use disorder. Before this groundbreaking studies showed that alcohol abuse runs in families, but it could not point to the genetic basis of this finding. The study was possible because the Human Genome Project was able to identify every gene that exists in human DNA.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so they suspected, before this 2006 study, but this was just the research that said, yep, this is definitely, one possible cause of...
Science is amazing. Science, I love science. And the Human Genome Project, I remember when it was announced they were getting a Pulitzer for unraveling the human genome. Mm. And the fact that we can use our DNA to actually find out if we have alcoholic traits. I can tell you I have an alcoholic trait. You can look at me back when I was drinking and I had the bottle. That was my alcoholic trait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would be nice to know, though, that if you're, predisposition to get it, to be an alcoholic. And then you just would never take that first drink, right?
Yeah, it's a disease like anything else. Mm-hmm. So, if you have predisposition for diabetes, you're not going to go out and load up on sugar.
Well, you might. If you're me, you might.
As far as, the way it relates to me in my life, my grandparents were alcoholics. I know that I have a genetic history of alcoholism just from living history. And my grandparents on my father's side, my grandmother passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. And they sat at the kitchen table for 40 years and drank. 3 weeks later, my grandfather died. They said he died of a broken heart. They had been together 40-some years. Mm-hmm. So there's a genetic history for me in living people. My father was an alcoholic up until his late 40s, and he's 30 years sober now, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. My mother, she drank all the way till the day she passed away. And so I come by it honestly. I know that. Mm-hmm. And I would love to have a test done just to see. I mean, I know I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, he would definitely probably show that you would.
But it would just be very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then it would be neat too if it said like, well, this is the percentage that you would become an alcoholic, or this percentage. So then you would kind of know, well, I only have 25%, so I can drink.
Oh yeah, that's how my alcoholic brain would be too. Like, well, I'm only 50% chance, so I'll just
So I'll just drink 50% of the alcohol.
That's right. That's funny.
But that doesn't work.
That's funny. No, I would drink 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me too. Guilty.
Yeah, my family has a long history of alcoholism, and I have no doubt that it's in my genetic code. And I wonder about my kids. my son never really drank. He has pancreatitis. He couldn't drink. It makes him sick. There's too much sugar in alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter, she doesn't drink except for a little bit, but I worry.
Yeah.
And then I have to wonder, in my own life, if she does develop alcoholism, it's not my fault, because I'll tend to want to blame myself.
Yeah.
Just because of the genetic.
It's
history.
their mother's fault.
Yeah, we'll blame somebody else. But no, I find the whole thing extremely fascinating. To have a genome, unravel it, and actually be able to say, this is what alcoholism looks like, and these are the characteristic traits of it, and here's the proof.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people debate, well, it's not a disease. Well, yes, it is. It's wrapped right around your human spiral genome. The double helix. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's going to be in mine too. So yeah, I find that interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I had grandparents also that were alcoholics. Thankfully, it skipped a generation because, I'm not sure about my father, but my mother, she wasn't an alcoholic at all. She could have one drink if I hardly ever saw her have a drink. And usually it was a grasshopper, which I thought sounded really disgusting anyways. So yeah, I didn't see it around my home. But my grandparents, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house too when I was growing up, especially in the summers. They had a nice place over on Torch Lake, and they both drank a lot, and it started after about 3:00 in the afternoon, and my grandma would pour my grandfather's first cocktail, and I could hear her dropping the ice clink clink into the glass and pouring alcohol into the glasses, and thinking, oh, that sounds so neat, look what they get to do at happy hour time. And then they love to also go out and have drinks and dinner. And so whenever I was at my grandparents' house, which was in the summertime was quite a bit, we always would go out for dinner, and they would just keep right on going with their drinking. They would have their drinks in the vehicle as they're driving to the restaurant. And then when they got to the restaurant, the first thing they did was make sure they had their alcohol right there. They were regulars at the restaurants that we went to. And my drink, they started when I was really young, was a Shirley Temple. And they would have their alcohol drink, which was all fancy, and I would have my non-alcohol drink, which was really fancy. And it was almost like saying, yeah, it's okay to drink.
Yeah, I was sitting here wondering if that experience as a small child played into your drinking as an adult.
Oh, I would imagine, because that's kind of how I think about dinners. You go out and have drinks.
Yeah.
Drinks first, cocktails, happy hour, whatever.
Normal.
Yeah. When I was with them, it was. So, but then it skipped a generation, and then I didn't show that I was an alcoholic, until, and I was later in my life. So.
Yeah, genetic history in alcoholism. Like I said, it fascinates me. It does. Another thing that we'd like to talk about is the fact that the holidays are coming up, and people are going to be alone for the holidays, and addicts and alcoholics don't do very well when we're alone. Mm-hmm. And so at these times, I remember in my life, at the darkest of times, being homeless and going to the soup kitchen to eat Thanksgiving dinner. So if you find yourself there, if you do, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, go to a meeting. You don't have to be alone.
Yeah, most of the people at places like those soup kitchens and churches, wherever, they're all there to help. They're all there out of love, and
they volunteer.
Yeah. So they're I'm sure any of them would just love to strike up a conversation with somebody who walked in.
The fact that the holidays are coming up, and you don't have to be alone. You don't have to drink. You don't have to take the drink today. That's the message that this whole podcast is about. You don't have to drink, no matter how bad it gets. There's always a way out. There's a meeting. There's somebody to call. And if you find yourself alone and the only thing you got to listen to is this podcast, then know that you're not alone, because I've been there too. I've been there on more than one occasion. You know, lonely for the holidays. I've been in prison and been lonely for the holidays. So I understand what it's like.
Yeah, and don't take it as just one big whole picture, you know. Just take it one step at a time, one day at a time, you know, 1 hour at a time.
1 hour at a time, so it's a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was on an online meeting the other day, and I was witnessing something pretty awesome, because there's couple guys at the meeting that were very new to the program, and I could see the desperation on their faces. And I remember that look of desperation and that feeling of that gift of desperation, really. And you know, the one guy, he was alone, and I remember that, and his story really touched me, and I was thankful that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm thankful that we're actually talking about this, because, like I said, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been alone, you know, and I know what it feels like. And if you've been given the gift of desperation, then know that it's going to be okay. And just go to a meeting, call somebody, pick up the phone, call your sponsor.
Yeah. If you have a sponsor, like I don't have a sponsor in my life. I have never had a sponsor.
Right. Well, some people, you know, they don't have sponsors, but it's a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we sponsor each other, and I get sponsorship through friends, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so there's people to talk to. You know, back to genetic disposition. I feel that there's no way we can stop from passing it forward to our kids. So the best way that probably I should do, and I should take the time to do, is really sit down and take the time to educate. You know, I think that's important.
Yeah. Sometimes our children, though, you know already by the time they become adults, because they've seen it through their whole life.
Yeah, my daughter has, you know, but I still have this fear. It's in the back of my mind sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I don't know. I know that on the other side of it, there's a lot of hope, you know, and I still worry, man. I still worry. I don't know.
Well, we always worry about our
yeah,
kids.
it's in my brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My mother, genetic disposition, you know, she was in that chain of alcoholics that lead to me. And I think that I learned not a lot, but some of my drinking behavior from growing up watching her drink.
Yeah.
Because that was, unlike you know, your mom didn't drink. My mom, growing up, was a heavy drinker. There was always bottles of R&R and fifths of Black Velvet in the house. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it was a different scenario. And so for me, like you going with your grandparents and having cocktails, the cocktails started early in the morning around our house.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I remember coming home from school and, you know, she's just drunk.
Yeah.
Smashed.
Yeah. No.
You know, time and time again. You know, and so to the point that it was just normal. You know what I mean? That was normal living for us, you know. It was normal that Mom didn't come down for Christmas morning. And we opened the presents without her.
Wow.
She was mad, but...
It was kind of her own fault, though.
Yeah. We were little kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, so it takes me back to me as a parent, too. Being an absentee father, I was present, but I was absent in a lot of things through my drinking. You know, dropped the ball a time or two. And that's okay, because I was able to pick it up, and my daughter and I have a great relationship today.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's what counts.
That's what counts.
Yep.
So for me, it all leads back to, what did God really intend for my life? What is my purpose? I have these alcoholic genome markers. I know I do. I'm an alcoholic. I'm on the other side of recovery. I'm in recovery. And I remember a time when I couldn't even talk to God. I was angry at God. When my mom died, I was angry.
That's understandable.
And when I started going to meetings and we would do the serenity prayer, instead of saying God, I would say Bob. Bob, grant me the serenity. And there was a hardening of my heart.
Speaking of which, say the serenity prayer real fast.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Okay.
Serenity prayer. It's a great prayer. I've really been looking at step 3 a lot in the big book. And it says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And I remember when I got baptized, everything changed for me. It truly did. That's when I turned my will over. And I said, God, I'm an alcoholic. God, I'm a sinner. Forgive me. And I tell you what, I came out of there changed. A different person than when I walked in there. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The compulsion to drink was gone. It had left me. And that was something that was a driving force in my life for a very long time. It kept me motivated. It kept me active, because drinking for me was a full-time job.
Yeah.
Trying to get the money here, trying to do this here, going over there, getting a bottle.
Yeah.
And
then if you ran out, you had to start all over again.
Yeah. If I ran out, I got sick. You know what I mean? My hands would shake and I would sweat profusely. And, so I remember those days, and they stick with me. But those are the things that, God really stripped away from me. A lot of that pain that I was carrying, and a lot of that pride.
Yeah.
And God stripped it away from me, and he took away the compulsion to drink. And that, to me, is just amazing.
That is amazing. You couldn't have done it without him.
No. No, I had then turned my will over to him, as I understood him.
And that was in step 3.
That's step 3,
That's cool.
Yeah, and I didn't want, like I said, I was angry at God for a long time. And I'm someone who was raised up in the church a bit. My aunt and uncle took me to church quite a bit. And so I had this imprint, this preconceived notion of God, what he should be, like this big old man sitting in the sky with a stick. And when you do something wrong, he raps you on the head. You know what I mean? It wasn't until later that I grew my own definition of God, what God means to me. And I'm still developing that relationship every day. You and I pray together every day. And so it's in those moments that we have to remind ourselves to be thankful, because there were times in my drinking and in my alcoholism where I just couldn't see a way out. I just couldn't see the other side of things. The only thing I could see was my troubles, and they were bigger than me. And now I'm on the other side of it. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast so bad, is to just tell people that there's hope and that there's a way out, and that you're going to be okay if you just follow the steps and if you just listen to God.
Yeah.
But it comes down to just being humble. And for me, that was hard. I was a prideful man. I still am at times, you know. But if it wasn't for God and turning my will over to him, I never would have lost that compulsion to drink. And I don't know even if I'd be sitting here today. You know what I mean? Because I believe that compulsion would still have been with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be out probably actively drinking.
Yeah, you'd have a relapse eventually, huh?
God is the key for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know? And so getting to know myself in recovery and getting to know God, he's got a good sense of humor, I tell you that. You know, but it was because of step 3 in the baptism for me that did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But anyway, I think we're going to wrap this up. And we just want to thank you guys for listening to us. And like I said, if you're out there and it's the holidays or even not the holidays and you find yourself alone, reach out to somebody. You don't have to be alone.
Odds are they could be alone too.
Yeah, odds are they're alone too. So, well, my name is Adam.
And I'm Sean.
And we just want to thank you for listening. Stone Soup Recovery Podcast.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey guys, listen up.
Hey, we just wanted to give a shout out to our friends over at 217 Recovery Podcast, Corey and Marnie. They're great people. They got a wonderful podcast going. It's 217 Recovery Podcast. Tune in and give them a listen.